Yeah, baby. Yeah. The Mac is back. Back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Junikala, and today we're checking out Oracle by Teletone Audio. As you might know, or as you might have heard me say before, Teletone is one of my absolute favorite developers out there in the sample library virtual instrument space, and certainly when it comes to the stuff that is, I don't know how to describe it, but non-orchestral certainly, but sort of maybe more, let's go with that, moving away from the orchestral sphere into other domains, because you can use this stuff for a lot of different stuff. But in terms of what Oracle is, let us go to the website and do our studying. So, subtitled A Mono/Poly Symphony. I will say that subtitle is already a bit confusing because I don't know what that means, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. This is priced right now as $119. It doesn't actually state whether this is just a normal full price or whether it's an intro price. I'm guessing this is the full price, and then maybe there's an intro coupon or some kind of voucher that you can use to get stuff off of that if you have some kind of applicable, appropriate purchase that has been done before. Again, this is not factual information. I think I got one in my email. But again, check your own email and just, trust what Teletone themselves tell you. But yeah, right now, if I would put this in my cart, it would be $119. So, the world's most iconic vintage monosynths captured inside an intuitive polysynth. Oracle. Okay, cool. So, is it like only monosynths but put into a polysynth format? Seems like it. For this to work, you're going to need Kontakt Player 7.6.1 or above, I would presume. Cool. There's a trailer, which I'm sure is stunning. I haven't watched a lot of content here because I want to give you my authentic response, so I don't want to have anyone else cloud my assessment or judgment of this. But overall, Teletone make beautiful, beautiful videos, both trailers and walkthroughs. So, worthwhile check it out for sure. And I'm sure they will cover a lot of things in the walkthrough that I won't cover here. A bit of more information here. Oracle combines the legendary DNA of vintage analog synths with an intuitive interface designed for both instant inspiration and deep control. Okay, so here they say vintage analog synths, but again, they don't mention mono synths only. Well, I guess we'll see, but maybe some clarification there would be useful, at least if you're where I am on the spectrum, let's put it that way. The legendary monosynths. Okay, so it seems like mono is what we're talking about here. Every waveform from these iconic monosynths was carefully sampled. That's good. I don't like my samples to be like floppily sampled, along with unique custom modulated tones that push them into new territory. Okay, nice. So, getting into the nerdy stuff, the synthy geekiness. Nice. Moog. There we go. Moog is kind of like what you would say here in Finland, I guess. Moog, yeah. Model D. So legendary Model D is the archetypal monosynth, warm, fat, and endlessly musical. Its iconic oscillators and filter define... sorry for my poor reading. Its iconic oscillators and filter defined an entire eras of electronic music. Defined entire eras. Jeez, Marcus. Get it together. From funk bass lines to cinematic scores. Yep. Roland SH101. Ooh, yeah, good stuff. This is Kodomo's favorite. Check out Kodomo, artist. Did I butcher that? I think he said SH101 or MS2. One of those. I think he said 101. Cool. Lean single oscillator synth that pushes far above its weight. This is true. Known for its sharp driving basses and cutting leads, it became a staple of underground electronic music and continues to inspire with its focused, no-nonsense character. Yep, that's what they say. Moog Sonic 6. Ooh, this is an interesting choice. While technically a duophonic synth, oh, they were so close. They said monophonic, but they put a duo in there. Okay, so that's it for this demo. I'm just kidding. The Sonic 6 has always been a strange outlier in the Moog family. Its quirky modulation paths and unconventional architecture make it feel unstable, alive, and wonderfully otherworldly. Cool. I'm actually pretty unfamiliar with the sound of it. I know the synth, but interesting to see how that will play itself out. Ooh, Korg MS-20. So this is one of the kind of the legendary staples. The MS-20 is a semi-modular beast known for its gnarly filter. This is true. And unpredictable character. Also true. Its patch cable chaos and screaming resonance make it as suited for abrasive textures as for eerie, delicate atmospheres. Cool. Sequential Circuits Pro 1. Okay. Interesting choice. Compact but ferocious, the Pro 1 delivers gritty, punchy tones with a raw edge. Famous for its snappy envelopes and aggressive modulation, it became a secret weapon in synth-driven pop and underground electronic music alike. Moog DFAM. Okay, this is very interesting choice for sure. Short for drummer from another mother. The DFAM is a modern Moog that blurs the line between percussion and synthesizer. Yeah, this is why I'm kind of surprised by it, but again, synthesis is synthesis, so you can do a bunch of stuff with a lot of different gear if you know what you're doing. With its percussive step sequencing and raw analog tone, it adds primal rhythm and bite to any palette. Cool. Over 300 presets. Oh, fuck. I guess you know that we're not going to be looking at all of those. Preset playthrough. Cool. So I'm sure this is also super solid. Just like my demos, right? Cool. Drag and drop LFO. So this is something that I talked about or discussed briefly on DMs with somebody. I don't know if he wants to be mentioned or not, but from Teletone. And this is like a really big feature, like a really big thing that they worked on, and also that was requested / I guess encouraged to be included. Because LFOs, well, in synthesis, you want to have the ability to move as many things in as many locations as you want. So apparently this does that. Complex sound design doesn't need to be complicated. With Oracle, modulation is as simple as dragging and dropping onto almost anything you see. This sounds really baller, to be honest. Create movement, pulse, or chaos in seconds, or sketch out your own custom LFO shapes with a few clicks. It's power without the learning curve. That sounds really cool, to be honest. Okay, we touched on that already. Arpeggiator, more than just an arpeggiator. Oracle's performance tools turn single notes into living performances. ARP modes, filter and length lanes, and velocity control let you build rhythmic patterns that feel human and expressive. It's an engine for ideas as much as it is a synth. So this is really something that I love about Teletone. They really go hard on the performance aspects, and they make really good sounding musical expression really easy to get your hands on. So I'm sure this is pretty awesome. Cool. Something we didn't touch on, 5 gigs of disk space. So I think my download via native access was like 4.8 something, I think, but again, 5 gigs. It's a pretty interesting size, because you could think this would be less, but knowing that it's sample based, it's actually, that's a fair size. But again, nice that it doesn't have a huge footprint, so it doesn't break your hard drive. Cool. I think that's it. Went through the basics of that. Let me close Chrome here and take myself to the DAW. So, I mean, just looking at this thing, I really like this. Super clean, super clear, but also it immediately has that synth vibe. Like it actually feels and looks like you are looking at a synth of the style that they have apparently gone for, or sampled, I should say. So immediately liking this, and anyone who is, this is also kind of smart in the sense that this is probably gonna be, well, it's designed for a lot of synth geeks as well. Like you can obviously grab this even if you're not like a synthesis nerd, and work with it, but this is also gonna be, you're gonna be right at home if you are a bit of a synth geek and you actually do like to work with actual hardware or sort of typical analog synths. So I think this is a really good blend visually of everything. Before we get deeper into that, let's talk about the agenda for this video. So I'm going to try and play as much of Oracle to you as I possibly can, and we're going to do so in the form of presets. So I'm going to try and play as many of those 300 presets, but we're not going to be able to go through all of them. Otherwise this demo would be, or review, whatever this is, would be way too long. But I'm going to try and touch on as many of them as I possibly can. Once I get the menu open, I can see a bit better what we're facing here. But the plan is to play as many presets as I possibly can. The way I'm going to go through it is I'm going to probably try and go through as fast as possible, playing just a bit of everything. Well, I shouldn't say that, but we're probably going to have to select based on names here and there. But I'm going to spend more time on sounds that immediately speak to me, and then I'm going to play those for longer. If I don't spend a lot of time on a preset, that's not a statement about whether I think it's good or bad, but rather whether I can come up with anything to play with that sound. So it is kind of like a combination of what I'm inspired by in the here and now. Let's also turn this clock / analyzer thing on. Blim. There we go. But yes, preset based. In terms of what you'll be hearing today, it's only Oracle in action. I don't add any effects, no EQ, compression, reverb, nothing. I only have a limiter on my master bus to make the level more consistent for this video, but it's set to be as transparent as possible, so you should hear very little or minimal coloration, if anything at all. So you get a realistic idea of what this thing sounds like. If you happen to hear any clipping, it's certainly the limiter in action, as all of the presets have different levels. There is some level fluctuation between presets, and sometimes they might blow the limiter, but I will probably let you know in any case, whether it's, if you hear clipping, it's the limiter. If it's not, I'll certainly let you know. Transparency, Teletone Audio did send me this copy, so thank you to them for doing so. That being said, as always, all opinions are my own, both in good and bad. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. Does that cover our bases? Yeah, probably lastly, like I said, this is a very, very blind demo. I've only heard like a few second snippets of the trailer of this thing, and also had to play a couple of notes to make sure that we're good to go for the video recording. But other than that, I literally have no idea what to expect, and beyond the concepts that we read from the website. So I haven't heard this actually in action, so you'll get my authentic response from there. All right, so looking at the interface here, again, as I touched on, looks beautiful, super clean, clear, concise. I have no issues following this already, but just to do a basic overview for you, basically each instrument, each preset, or even if you use an initialized sound, has an A and B side. In each of these, you can open up the black box menu there, where you can choose the source for the A or B side. So you can slot in anything from here. You got categorization based on the synthesizers that have been sampled, or we have categorization based on, well, there are shapes here, modulation. All right, so this is kind of interesting. I don't exactly know how these are gonna play out, or what they, I mean, I understand basic shapes here, but what these actually sound like, I'm not 100% sure. But I like this in concept, at least, from the perspective of choosing sounds based on the character of the source sound rather than from which synth it comes from. But that's a good thing to actually cover both approaches, because some people want to choose based on a synth and some people want to choose based on rather maybe the type of the sound, if I understand this correctly. Cool. In each of those A/B slots, there's volume, pan, octave, tune, pretty basic. And then you have envelopes for volume and filter, and those have the ADSR controls. Between the A and B sections here, we have the movement area. So basically here we have these 6 different, should I call these like movement sources, I guess, like LFO sources. So you click on one, do your adjusting here. And also important to note that there are on and off buttons here, the orange ones that, you know, go out and come back in. So that's important to recognize, because I can imagine that you have been doing your movement adjustments, but you haven't remembered to turn on the control. So I think that's something that might be missed sometimes when you're playing with this. I mean, it seems so obvious, but it's a small light here. Then when you're doing your settings, let's say in slot 5, which is now presumably off, you might do your settings and throw it in there and be like, hey, I didn't hear a difference. So that's something to pay attention to. But in each of these slots, these seem to, they offer you the same parameters. So you have your rate, which is the speed of it, depth, which is the depth of it, and then interesting, delay. Okay, that's cool. And then in here, you have your different wave shapes. So there's a sine, some triangle, square, cool. And then this one, which is kind of a box with a pen, I guess, allows you to write in the shape, I would presume. Yes, that's beautiful, Marcus. Good job, Marcus. Let's see if we can do something super adult-like. Doesn't quite work the way I want. Anyway, you get the idea. You can draw your shapes, and apparently these can or will, depending on the shape you draw, you could do some like really weird things, and it can create this kind of like glitchy stuff. So this is definitely worth exploring for sure. 128 steps. Can you go higher than that? No, that's the maximum. Cool, good to know. And then you can, ooh, okay, so you have a control. Ooh, that's nice. Ooh, that's nice. You have a control for smooth, so you can draw smoothly. What is shift? Oh, okay, nice. This is very well designed. Cool. Tempo sync, invert, retrigger, cool. Performance control, basically, this is very interesting. You have a control for vintage. And to my understanding, this controls basically the drift of the synth or the slight wobbliness, detuniness of an instrument. So basically it adds that sort of random organic movement, for the lack of better terms here. So this is super important. Sometimes when you get sounds that are sort of a bit too sterile, if you don't want to go for that kind of sound, you can introduce this and bring in some of that, you know, fluctuation, some of that movement. So really important to keep an eye on that. And then of course you have a glide control here, which is quite essential for synths. And of course you can choose mono or poly here, down here. Below this is the purple box, which opens the preset folder. And here, very nicely, you can navigate based on, they say vibe, but basically the type of synth sound that you want to go for. Arpeggiator, bass, lead, pad, pluck, keys, aggressive, dreamy, dark, bright, evolving, analog, simple, complex. Seems like a good set of types to go with, or you can navigate based on, you can navigate alphabetically, let's put it that way. One thing here to note is that you can open multiple of these simultaneously, which is a good feature. Personally, I don't know why I would use that. I guess it makes sense if you choose ARP and then dark, because that's like type of a synth sound category that I want to go for, but with a certain tone or color. That makes sense. You just got to keep an eye on these boxes here, because you might, again, let's say, forget that you have analog on and then you're choosing sounds from a folder that you don't want to have on. So just keep an eye on that, because when you click on something, it doesn't just select that folder, but rather it turns the folder on or off. So you got to manually turn on or off the ones you want to explore or use. We're probably going to use the vibe or the type of, let's go with vibe, since that's the word that they've used, which is interesting because vibe isn't exactly descriptive of whether something is arpeggiated or a lead sound or a pad sound. I wouldn't say so, would you? I'm sure this is very subjective, but it's kind of like a type of synth sound approach, I guess, for me. But yeah, we're gonna go based on these because it makes the time stamping for this video a lot easier. So we'll go based on folders there. Below that purple box in the middle, you have your area for effects and arpeggiator. So you got to click on one of those to navigate through them. Also, there is again the orange small box, which indicates whether that section is on or off. So here it's easier to see because it actually darkens the whole area. So that's easier to follow compared to the movement LFO sources. In effects, you got your color area with a mix control and phaser, chorus and flanger. Character has drive and saturation. Filter has cutoff, resonance, high pass filter. That's simple enough. Tone has noise and sub. That's a really, really cool and I would say essential control to have. So very, very happy to see that there. And then in space, you have mix control and reverb and delay. And then in reverb, you got this drop-down menu, which allows you to select the type. And in delay, you get like a bigger menu here with the basic controls. Interestingly, there's an analog control there as well. So presumably makes it darker as you ramp that up. Arpeggiator, again here you can control velocity of the arp, length of the arp, or filter. So this is really cool. And again, you can control the number of steps by dragging this thing around, and 16 is the maximum number of steps there here. Octave control, swing control, humanize, makes sense. And of course, direction of arp in this menu can be selected. Cool. I think that just about covers it. Basic interface overview. We're going to go into the ARP folder now and choose this. I'm just going to check that we are actually navigating, through this. Yeah, looks like it. So going to basically try and go as fast through these and stick to the ones that kind of immediately speak to me or inspire me in some way. So this one is called 98% Pure. Really digging the effects on that. I don't remember the last time I've heard a sub bass thing that, I shouldn't say sub bass, but like a bass synth sound like that punches through that well, and that is thick sounding. This is where the sub control really gets useful. Yeah, that's insane. That's going to be so good for like if you were doing like cinematic stuff, like for an action cue thing, that's just going to punch right through. That's amazing. There's some really cool fluctuation going on there. Like, I think a lot of that, what I like, is coming from the length of the arpeggiator there. Yeah, that's super cool because like it's bringing this subtle fluctuation movement there, like that organicness, that humanness, I don't know for the lack of a better word, but very cool. Is it actually true the vintage control isn't even engaged here? didn't sound like it was. Cool. Harpsichord. It's remarkable how clean and crisp and upfront this is. Like, it's right there. It's super punchy. But here, again, like, this is a very kind of sparse, a bit like veiled sound overall, like a thin sound, but it sounds so full simultaneously, which is really remarkable. It sounds brilliant, and there's not even a hint of harshness or brittleness there. Like, it sounds super pleasant to listen to, even when it is kind of like a very top end focused sound. That's really remarkable. I'm already hearing that this is going to have a lot of use in a lot of different genres. I mean, this obviously kind of is reminiscent of like early video game stuff. So you could use this for like a more of a modern take, for like a really retro type of video game. And that one previous ARP was more like a cinematic scoring thing for me. I'm sure all of these evoke different things for everybody, but. Okay, I'm done. That's it. How good is that? How good is that? That is so full. That is so juicy. The clarity is insane. Like, how do they strike this balance of the clarity, but the fullness of the sound? And it's not like there's not a hint of any intrusive aspect of sound, period. Like, it's clean and crisp, but doesn't get harsh, doesn't get brittle. It's just full and juicy. And then how you still have this clarity, but the sense of the vintage, the analog, like that's. And we got to move on, because otherwise I'm just going to play that preset for the rest of time. doing it again. Yeah. I mean, it's so sweet sounding. I mean, again, this has been the Teletone strength for a long time, that the vibe is just oozing out of the sound, and it's so precise, it's so meticulous. Like, there's nothing, like, you can hate this sound, or you can like this sound, or love this sound, or hate it, but there's no mistaking that every bit of this is intentional in here, and it's made with love. It's oozing with a vibe. That's insane. Like, hearing that, knowing that, or you know it because you hear it. you hear it from the sound, and it's so. It's, I don't know what I'm even saying anymore. It's insane to achieve this level of vibe with this level of fidelity. Again, here, the fullness, the juiciness, how well it sits. Like, this is so ready to go. Like, it doesn't, you just need to fit it basically in your mix, but yeah. And again, this is like a whole different type of a sound. Like, that's going to be amazing for a lot of like synth wavy type of things. Again, I don't know how they do that. Like, that's so crisp, clean, but vibey, but full and juicy. It's like, it just ticks all the boxes. And again, like, retro video game stuff obviously comes to mind there. Yeah, I mean, that bass is insane. That sub is so good. Yeah, I'm gonna do it again. I mean, yeah, I'm just repeating myself, but it's incredible how it's just so full, clean, juicy, crisp, but vibey simultaneously. It literally ticks all of the boxes. And if you don't want to tick all the boxes, you can just go in and tweak and get rid of those. But that is insanely good sounding. Obviously, it doesn't, you know, wouldn't play chords or that kind of stuff with that. You can tweak away the wonkiness of it. But there, I just wanted to hear the stereo feel, the separation, the imaging. And again, there, how just tactile, like how visceral those elements are. And they pop perfectly. They're not overly harsh or aggressive. They are sitting in a really, really sweet spot. Like, yeah. I mean, these are so well put together. I mean, again, the sub synth doing a lot of work here. Beautiful, full low end. But here, I wanted to demonstrate how nicely that sound pops. Again, it's so sort of tactile and visceral, like you feel it. But also knowing, like working with a lot of mixes, you hear that sits in a perfect place because it's not at all harsh or too pushy when it comes to those percussive elements, those transients. They like perfectly pop to give you the exact emotion or thing that you want that kind of a sound to have, but it doesn't annoy the ear at all. So that's really, really well mixed. Same thing here, but also the brilliance there on the drive here from the character is really good. How it bites slightly on that longer note is really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just I wanna nail that. I wanna actually get. Let me actually go in the ARP here. So it's spaced down. I wonder what that precisely means. Let me try and tweak that. One more time. Kind of missing my timing here a bit. Wonder how I can actually influence that here. I don't seem to have the control here. Or do I? Okay, so it's as played, chord, or random, or up. So I would just need to actually land my notes in the order that they're supposed to be played in. Yeah, I mean, in case you couldn't tell from the, 5 minutes we played that one preset. Absolutely beautiful. Again, this is the kind of stuff that I just want to write music with that. I want to make an album based on that. Sure, why not? Like, yeah, some really cool, melancholic, nostalgic stuff. Yeah, it's the kind of stuff that makes me cry when I play. So there's no higher praise in my book than that. this weird pain in my lower abdomen here. Jeez, I hope that doesn't get worse because this demo is gonna change course pretty quickly. Cool, so that was the ARP folder. Turn that off, go into basses. So quite a few basses. So I gotta be selective here, otherwise we're never gonna get through this. So okay, that's really cool. Let's pull back the volume here a bit. Absolutely stunning. So thick, perfect amount of grit and bite. Wait a minute, didn't we? No, we didn't do Armok. Super rusty with my playing, I just noticed. I love sounds like these. This is like a really perfect take on this. And again, it's in the bass folder, but that doesn't really say anything about a synth sound much when you start pushing it. So perfect. So thick and juicy. Damn, DFAM. Yes, this octave range pretty much ideal for that. Wait a minute, didn't we see some of these? Okay, so this is something I am personally a bit... I'm trying to think what I actually think about this, but we obviously have overlap here because I recognized a couple of those preset names, and this one I definitely did. So this seems to be in both folders. Okay. I think that totally makes sense from the perspective of an actual user experience and not a reviewer experience. Because the sound can be both. So yeah, this definitely, I'm not going to make a statement about this because I don't exactly know where I stand with this. It does make navigation overlapping, which is convenient and good, but probably overall this is a positive. Of course, from a reviewing perspective, not ideal because we're going to have too much overlap. But yeah, I'm trying to think what I actually think of this in terms of navigation. Because I understand if I choose both folders or sort of both vibes in this case, then I would get the overlapping stuff. But to have them overlap even beyond selection, I guess that completely makes sense because you can have a bass sound, but it's also an ARP sound. But then in the bass folder, I also have ARPed sounds, which doesn't matter because you can just turn off the ARP if you don't like it. But I don't know. It just makes me think how I would actually like this to be, because I'm obviously wearing my reviewer demoer glasses on right now. So I don't know. But I think this will change our approach in the sense that I'm gonna start selecting presets here so that we can avoid this overlap. Cool. I think that's it for bass sounds. Let's go into leads. I think there's a fair bit of overlap here. What a stunningly full, beautiful, juicy, grimy sound. Yeah, beautiful, full, punchy. And again, that gets gritty, but it's not, my ears are not being like, oh, that's too much, which is super cool. All right, moving into pads. Guessing, luckily, there's a little bit less overlap here. But I will, regardless, be choosing preset names here selectively. Really cool. I would definitely voice that differently. I probably tweak the ADSR curve there a bit. Maybe do separation for low parts and high parts. Maybe do a bit more spatial effects there. But really loving the essence of there, like a very contemplative ambient style thing there. Okay. Beauty in nature. That is the limiter. That is also the limiter. There's quite a bit of fluctuation there in resonances. Really cool. I mean, a lot of this is going to be right at home in a kind of a lo-fi type of way. Pull back the level a bit more. Yeah, very cool. Those kind of things can get sort of cluttered and muddy very easily, but these don't. Okay, that is very impressive. That effect and the spread is really cool. Very nice. It's interesting how it can be so clean and so crisp and fresh, still having that vintage sound to it. It's like old but new. Trying to make like a shitty 80s theme song. Really nice. That's a pretty typical sound that a lot of libraries offer, but that one has like a very natural, believable, pleasant graininess and veiliness to it, sounding super smooth. Okay. That would be really cool for some cinematic sound design stuff. All right, cool. Let's go into Plucks. Let's try and pick something that we haven't already played. Very cool. Love that kind of stuff, especially for me, like some video game stuff would be very nice. Yeah, you could do some really cool, maybe 90s style of stuff with that. Yeah, me likey. Let's do one more from here. That's a bit of clipping. Let's choose another one. Cool. It's moving into keys here. I will say now, commenting on the navigation, even beyond this reviewing process, navigating this, like, again, people have very varying degrees about this. I'm probably sufficiently in the spectrum that I'm sort of maybe a bit, because I would use the navigation to look for things and know precisely where they are. So having things in multiple folders, I know it makes sense in terms of describing the type of sound. But a part of me wants things to be in one place also. But people navigate sounds very, very differently. So I don't want to make that as an overarching statement about what is best or good or what is not. But I am sort of like, I feel like if I need to over and over like look at the same, because let's say if I went to Plucks and I looked for stuff and I was like, this doesn't work, let's go to keys. I want to have the ability to not see anything that I saw in Plucks so that I can navigate stuff in keys, if that makes sense. So, of course, you can overlook the ones you've seen already, but do you remember all of them? And also, if you have to look through them, that's going to take extra time as well. So that's kind of becoming one of the things in terms of the navigation that I wish you could sort of choose how it categorizes things. Because again, I see the sense in this completely, no issues with that, and I'm sure many of you love that, but just a thought. Beautiful tone. Wow, this one has a really interesting decay. Like that reverb there is just on the bottom there. It's like a really interesting tone. Interesting, that ghostly thing in the back. It sounds more like weird digital cats to me, but very cool. I'll probably use those two sounds in separate ways. That's the limiter clipping, very resonant sound. Yeah, again, the pluckiness is beautifully puffy, I guess. That was the limiter. Cool. So I think in aggressive we probably have a lot of overlap with what we've had. Looks pretty... Yeah, this is really the difficulty from certainly from a demo perspective, to try and keep track of every sound, because I feel like a lot of the ones we've went through have been aggressive. Quite a lot of them have been dreamy as well. Yeah, this looks very familiar for the most part. Some of them have been dark. Yeah, this is kind of like the challenge here in terms of navigation. So in hindsight, maybe a completely alphabetical approach would have made more sense. This actually brings back some memories of some demo we did a long time ago, where we had the same issue, because I didn't know. I thought they were actually categorized only into one folder, but these actually overlap. So there is that. I think due to this, what I want to do here, because this is going to be really difficult and tedious to go through everything here in a way that makes sense and goes fast enough. So I think we're gonna call it there. I think we covered reasonable ground there. Seems like not many struck my eye that we didn't touch on. I mean, there's plenty of presets here we didn't play, but again, just kind of briefly overviewing this looks like we covered a fair bit of ground, let's put it that way. So summarizing this, a lot of the presets were S tier. Again, important to remember here that we only sampled some of them. Again, I think we covered a fair bit of ground here, but by no means did we play all of the presets. And also important to remember, especially with an instrument like this, this is meant to be used. You're meant to go in there and get creative, especially with this movement section here. This is very, very flexible, very unique, gives you opportunities to create all kinds of combinations of signal routing and processing. And this is an entire aspect here is not being demonstrated just by playing some of the presets, which is routing basically these LFOs into just about anything, which is super, super cool. So this definitely has that kind of I would say like a workhorse aspect as well. And that's a high praise. Like not many instruments can be given that title, because people can have like a negative connotation to that word, but it's not. It just means that an instrument is so good and so well designed and sounds so good that it can cater to a number of things. This definitely gives me those vibes. Again, everything's super clean, clear, laid out, fast to work with, especially with this LFO system here. It's really, really well designed. And also the clear impression that I'm getting from these presets here is that this can bend itself. That's maybe not the right word. This can really generate a wide spectrum of sounds for very, very different genres. I mean, we had this can probably do just about anything, but okay, we had those kind of like vintage synth sounds. We had that kind of clear 80s vibe, like that synthwave stuff going on. We had a lot of like retro video game vibes from here, a lot of sounds that you can use for hip hop or like modern pop production. Then we had that cinematic component as well, some of those driving basses, and with some of those pads, again, you can go that cinematic route as well. So, and this is quite interesting because Teletone so far has been a company that has, if we think about like Scarbo or these type of libraries, they like have a very specific sound. It's like this library does things in this style and this sound. And that has sort of been the theme so far. But this might be the first library that has that kind of wide spectrum capability or usability. I mean, it's evident that this can go across a number of genre borders. So this is really, really different in that sense when it comes to Teletone. But again, like this is simultaneously so crisp, clean, juicy, but also like oozing that vibe. And again, the way this movement thing, this LFO assigning thing is working, it makes this thing come alive in a very, very different way, because you can throw these things at effects and have them change in a variety of ways. And it all sounds, again, so like full, juicy, crisp, clean, but oozing vibe. Like it's just like overflowing with what is the word that I'm looking for? It's extremely capable on all fronts, I guess, is what I'm chasing here. So extremely impressed by this. And this is one of those things, like once you play with this for longer, you're just going to realize the capability of it, the scope of it. I just see kind of the surface here, played some of the presets, had a general look at the architecture of it, and you go like, ooh, okay, like there's a lot here to work with and to master. And this definitely gives me those kind of workhorse vibes. And this could in many cases be like the only synth you might need depending on what you're doing. And that's a pretty high praise. Obviously, if you're doing something very specific and more obscure beyond the sort of staple fundamentals of analog synthesis, then maybe not. But I certainly think you can go really, really far with this. And I mean, we did quite a few walkaways in the ARP folder, which basically says everything you need to know about my opinion about this. I'm just so impressed by how this can deliver that fullness, that juiciness, but simultaneously be like really clean, very crisp, but give you that vintage vibe. It's confusing to me how it can tick all the boxes simultaneously, because it gives you this. To me, this sounds like it's the old thing, but it's a newer, fresher take on it. And I'm genuinely stunned by how it can be like full, juicy, clean, crisp, but still vintage vibey. It's really an incredible achievement. So those are my thoughts on this. Some of you probably already have this at home or at your studio. So let me know what you think of this instrument. I'm sure I've not touched on many things that are quite important to a lot of people regarding this instrument. So let me know your thoughts, and as always, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.